Born in Hungary and educated at the University of California at Berkeley and Stanford University, he oversaw the creation of seminal applications like Microsoft Word and Microsoft Excel. The New York Times has called him arguably the most successful pure programmer in the world. He's also a man of many interests, including piloting jets, helicopters, and also space exploration. In 2007 and 2009, he traveled on missions to the International Space Station. His most recent project is a book written by his late father, the scientist CharlesSimonyi. It is called A Cultural History of Physics. I am pleased to have CharlesSimonyi at this table for the first time. Tell me about your father and what he meant to you and why you felt like this is the book that you should be publishing.
Oh, my father was a wonderful scientist, but he considered himself a teacher.
Yeah.
First of all, he was a professor of electrical engineering, theoretical electrical engineering. So it's almost like physics. And generations of Hungarian engineers grew up under his tutelage. He basically taught them Maxwell's equations, the most fundamental parts of electrical engineering. And
did you become a computer scientist because of the influence he had on you?
Well, actually, it probably, despite of that.
In spite of the fact you became what you did.
Well, computers are really engineering.
Yeah.
And my dad was a theoretician.
Right.
In fact, I was a minor in Hungary when I learned computers, and at that time, minors, we are talking about 15-year-old kids, didn't work with computers. Computers were these big boxes. You could see probably on Fifth Avenue displayed them.
With cards and all of that.
Cards and everything. Yeah, the giant brains. They were called. So there was a rumor in Hungary that it was really my father who wrote the programs that I was writing in order to further my career. It's kind of a way that things used to work with pull in a socialist economy.
But he sounds like a brilliant man.
He certainly is in a way that in terms of his teaching and just the pedagogical approach was great. And then he was also a humanist. So he loved the human subjects, and we kept a wonderful library at home of thousands of books in many different languages. And I caught him in my reminiscing about him.
Right.
I caught him the Google of the 1960s, because every time we asked him a question, he told us that we can look it up. I don't know the answer, but I can look it up. I can find it in 5 different places and in several different languages.
So he was the Google of he was his own search engine.
Absolutely, and the library was his internet, his own library.
So he was a man who loved the life of the mind.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that's probably what he gave you, isn't it?
Well, he gave me many things. Probably one of the most important things he gave me was my freedom. When I decided to leave Hungary, still as a minor, even though it hurt my family, he agreed that I would have to continue my studies where it's the best for me and not necessary for him. He actually lost his job, his teaching job, which was a great tragedy, except that he turned his energies toward writing this particular book, The Cultural History of Physics.
Now, when did he finish this book?
Well, the first edition of the book was in 1978. He probably started in 71, 72. I left Hungary in 66. And losing your job took a little while, and then created a lecture series, and then the lecture series became this book. So 78 was the first edition, and it went through 5 Hungarian editions. 60,000 copies were sold in Hungary, which translated into the U.S. market. It would be 2 million copies.
Yeah. And is he alive today?
No, he departed in 2001.
Yeah, and buried where?
In Budapest, yes.
Yeah, in Budapest,
he spent his life in Hungary.
But he wanted you to go find freedom.
Absolutely, absolutely. Despite of the difficulties that it might
mean for him,
accrue to him, and frankly for maybe to myself. So he trusted me, and so did my mom, who is still alive.
You have always said the most important thing in your life was being able to live free. Yes?
Well, absolutely. I think that means so much. It's not only what you do and what you can do, but also where you can go and the people that you can associate with. It's not everything you do by yourself. And I was extremely lucky in traveling first to Denmark and then to Berkeley and teaming up with the most outstanding people, and so weaving my way through those connections to Xerox Palo Alto Research Center, and where, of course, the personal computer revolution
gave birth to it.
Started.
Right.
And then from then Microsoft, which was the exploitation of that fantastic technology.
Now tell me the truth. When you see where it's become, is that what you ever imagined back then?
Absolutely. I think
you did.
We have a written business plan to prove that. We thought that, well, the scale, the availability, the price, the richness is probably exceeded our expectations.
Yeah. Bill Gates is always his great mission statement was a computer in every home or
on every desk.
Every desk.
That's right. That's the dream I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But
but then now you see Facebook, and now you see all the applications, and now you see it's astounding. And now you see the power of computers compared to
and it's continuing, Charlie. It is really continuing. Even though the hardware doesn't grow at the same rate as it did before, and it's kind of hard to maintain that incredible clip, but there's an incredible amount of room in software and turning more and more activities that really should be automated, and we feel that should be automated into software.
If you were starting today, if you were 17 years old and you land on American shores and you got the kind of education you had then,
I would come and join Intentional Software, my company.
Yeah.
No, well,
actually, let's assume that. So why would you join Intentional Software? What would be the attraction of Intentional Software, your company?
Well, this is what's the next step? Where if it's not in the hardware? Of course, look, there are many opportunities, and I'm not saying that this is the only one, but in terms of just sheer size, the growth is continuing in acquiring knowledge and processing knowledge and recording knowledge and creating some other work products from knowledge. So go to a client and ask them, what do you know? Yeah. What is your knowledge base? And then put that into the computer and then create all kinds of results from that stored and processable knowledge.
So when you went to Microsoft and you met Bill Gates, what was that like, and what was he like?
Well, I met him in September of 1980, and I was astounded. You know, there was old pictures of Bill. Of course, he was always very young looking, but I don't think it was linear, his youth, and especially when he didn't wear glasses. It was even his youthfulness was exaggerated. So he
looked like a teenager.
If your words, not mine. You know, when you looked in his eyes and you listened to his words, I mean, it was an amazing experience. It was really a transformational experience. I knew that if this revolution is going to succeed, it's going to succeed there. And it's going to be Bill. It's going to be
at that he was riding the crest of the wave.
Not only that, but he is the excellent surfer, if you will. He is really incredibly positioned with his skills, his understanding, with his energy, with his dynamism.
It would not have happened as fast as it did without Bill Gates.
Oh no doubt it would have been. It could have been slower. It could have been more fragmented. Yeah. I mean, look at, for example, consumer electronics today. How much easier it is to use the complex computer. You know, you go to a business office in a hotel, and you know that you can use the computer. You go upstairs and try to turn on the TV with the remote. I think you will have more problems because of that fragmented nature of
that's because Steve Jobs had not yet got to doing what he wanted to do
I think that
with television.
Steve was an incredible person, and I listened to his speeches in 1980, and from 83 to 86 we worked very closely together Microsoft and Apple on the software for the Macintosh,
right.
especially.
And in fact, which is an interesting story because, I mean, Steve needed the software, needed to work with Bill. And,
totally.
You know,
but we needed the hardware. So I mean, it wasn't a one-sided relationship.
It was an interconnection.
Absolutely.
Interdependent.
Absolutely. And we were. There were times when Microsoft had more software people working on the Macintosh than Apple did. If you remember,
right?
Yes. I mean, Apple was, of course, an incredibly successful company by that time.
Right.
But their success was based on Apple II and Apple III, and to a much less extent on Lisa. But Apple II and Apple III was their bread and butter, and the group that was doing Macintosh was flying a pirate flag on their building, and the bad guys, you know, relative to the pirate flag, that was the rest of Apple.
Yeah, that's a great story.
Yeah.
Compare the two and contrast the two of them, Bill and Steve.
Well, I think that they're both very intense people. I think that Bill is more on the rational side of the brain. I mean, I don't remember if it's left or right.
I don't either, but yeah,
whatever that side is.
Yeah.
And then maybe Steve is a little bit on the other side.
He's more instinctive.
Yeah. I mean,
is that what you mean, creative?
Yes,
more?
But I think it also artistic
right.
the instinctive.
I want to think that's the left side of the brain, but I'm not
whatever
sure.
It is, yeah.
Right.
So. Maybe it's only if you are left-handed.
Right.
So I think that's probably the chief difference. For example, I mean, Bill is an excellent technical person, and it's
He's
very
a good programmer.
Yes, yeah, he understands the technical details. He understands. Well, he understands the programming. He understands the relationships. He understands the consequences, the difficulties. And I think that's a great great difference. Now, mind you, what Steve has been doing is incredible when the time was right, and finding out these new market segments, and then exploiting them.
Yeah, well, exploiting is the word too. Exploit is the word. I mean, the interesting thing.
In a positive sense, of course.
Yeah, yes, they both were extraordinary business people and drove a very hard bargain. You know, and enabled them to have the success that they did.
Yeah, I think that Bill was a better business person, but that's just my opinion.
Why do you say that?
Well, I think that Bill understands the figures.
Right.
He understands the risks. I think he's more prudent. I think that he has a long-term view, and. You know, it's not Bill who had to go for emergency loans.
It was Steve.
Yes.
Yeah. And Bill had all that money.
Yeah. But you know, it's a little bit like gambling. You know, anybody can make a lot of money by doubling down and putting it on red each time. And some people will lose. It's not good business. It's if you have the long-term view, you are not doing that. I think that Steve was more prone to do that.
To take risk,
yes.
to take bigger risks.
To those kinds of risks.
Yeah.
Yes.
You left Microsoft, though. Why did you do that?
Well, life changes all the time, and I had this particular dream of knowledge processing and knowledge acquisition, and I wanted to pursue that dream, and it was probably best done on my own. Also, I was able to take time.
First of all, you made a lot of money.
My own.
Yeah, you had plenty of money then, so you could do whatever you wanted to.
Indeed, I did. Yes.
Yeah. Tell me how we measure your passion for space exploration.
I think it was an opportunity that was open, that was completely unexpected. I don't think any of us would have thought that in the first decade of the 21st century, private individuals could go to space and participate in space missions. Not people who have the right stuff, but the rest of us, if you will. And this door was open, and I did have the qualifications.
What were the qualifications?
Well, there were really none, to be sure. But as such, certainly not those that are required by the national space organizations. But you have to be, of course, paid a ticket.
What was it? How much it cost?
The
was it like $30 million or something?
It was in that range. It was less, quite a bit less for the first flight, and in that range for the second flight. The prices are going up dramatically because everybody knew that the space shuttle wouldn't be flying. So NASA now has all the seats. NASA has been paying over $50 million per seat for.
To go to the space station.
To go to the space station. And NASA, of course, has been using the Soyuz as their vehicle in the past as well. And I had the privilege of flying with a number of NASA astronauts on board of Russian spacecraft, not to mention the space station itself.
Yeah. What were the physical demands of this?
Physical demands weren't that bad. Of course, you cannot be claustrophobic, and you have to be able to do go through the acceleration profile that is normal for a space flight, especially for a Russian space flight. And these are very easily measured. You have to be able to tolerate weightlessness. This can be done in the laboratory.
Is it hard to tolerate weightlessness?
Oh, I didn't find it hard. There are several issues about it. There's a long-term weightlessness has a lot of medical issues. And there's also a problem on the first couple of days. There's a space adaptation syndrome, SAS, which is kind of an illness, and it
what does it do to you?
Strikes. You get it's like a horrible car sick. I think it's the worst car sickness. You would throw up. You lethargic. You cannot participate. You basically have to rest. You get.
Now, that happens to everybody?
No, the numbers I've seen that it happens to 50% of the people. That's not what I've observed, but I've seen crewmates being uneasy at times, despite of fairly strenuous training. By the way, there's no standard schedule of how to train for the space adaptation sickness. The Russians do differently, and NASA does it differently. But I think that's good too, because we get more medical data. The interesting thing is that by the participation of individuals like myself, civilians, we find out how the body responds for a larger larger scale of bodies, not necessarily somebody who is not necessarily completely healthy, who is not selected for perfect health. In fact, a number of the space tourists had minor medical procedures that they had to take care before the flight. And this is well documented now in the literature. And this had never happened in the past, because anybody with those ailments, if you will, or disabilities, if you will, would have never been selected for spaceflight.
This book that brought you here, Homage to Your Father, written by him, A Cultural History of Physics. I thank you for coming.
Thank you very much,
Charlie.
Charlie. It's great to be here.
Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.